On our program today, a talk by Mark Braverman, the author of a new book called Fatal Embrace, Christian, Jews, and the Search for Peace in the Holy Land. And a radio comment from Glenn Ford of Black Agenda Report entitled, "What part of We Need Jobs Does Obama Not Get?" First, Mark Braverman. He's a clinical psychologist since 2006. He's devoted himself full-time to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. He's the executive director of Holy Land Peace Project, an interfaith ecumenical organization. Braverman is a co-founder of Friends of the Tents of Nations North America, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting Palestinian land rights. He serves on the board of directors of the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions, USA, and the advisory committee of Friends of Sabeel, North America.
The book is written as a result of my shock, my horror, my sadness, and my anger at what is happening in historic Palestine. What I saw in the West Bank on that summer was my people, in my name, supposedly to keep me safe, dispossessing and humiliating another people. I saw that it had been going on for generations. I saw that it was continuing. I saw that there were no brakes on it. And I realized that is why there is no peace. I knew that until we Jews looked in the mirror, saw what we were doing, and decided to stop that there would never be peace, there would never be security for my family in Israel, there would never be justice for the Palestinians who have lost their land and are being driven off their ancestral farms. I saw all that. I realized it had to change.
My own particular concern is about my faith community, my people, the Jewish people, and the deep, deep trouble that we are in. I want to start with a story. First of all, my background. My background is that I was born in 1948 in Philadelphia, so I'm a Jewish kid born in Philadelphia in 1948 to the middle of the road religious parents. Actually, my mother was religious, my father had no use for it, but they were both very, very, very committed to the Jewish identity. But if you're a Jew born in 1948, post-war in the United States of America, you are raised in an amalgam of rabbinic Judaism and political Zionism, and it is impossible to differentiate between them. I was just talking to someone earlier, I think it was John, and he said to me, can you explain something to me? I went to a funeral in a synagogue, and up on the pulpit, there's a flag of Israel. Can you explain that to me? I said, it's very simple. Yes, we pray to Israel. Literally in the liturgy, 3 times a day. May God bless the state of Israel, the first flowering of our redemption. So I was raised with the belief, being told that I was blessed to have been born in a generation where my people had been redeemed. And it was a story of heroism and bravery. And this was the story that I grew up with. In 1948 was the War of Liberation, literally, in Hebrew. The War of Liberation. And it was years later that I found out that there was another story. And you've been hearing about that story. So, my grandfather was born in Palestine in the year 1900. It makes me a Palestinian, because people get very confused when I talk about that. I'm a Palestinian Yehudi. I'd say this to people who I didn't know there was such a thing, but it's true. As such, half of my family was in Israel, mostly religious Jews. I went there I went there at the age of 17 on a synagogue trip. And I fell in love. I mean, I was being reunited with my family, with my roots. It was wonderful. Plus, I was experiencing the romance of Israel. I was speaking Hebrew with the farmers, and I was visiting the kibbutzim, and it was Tel Aviv, and it was beautiful, and it is beautiful. I'm sitting with my family one day, and it was on Shabbat. And I remember this. You know, how many things do you remember from when you were 17, except, you know, the first time or whatever, right? This sticks in my mind, right? They're talking about the Arabs. Now, it's 1965. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know racism when I hear it. And I said to myself, what is this? This was not part of the story. And that a seed was planted. I said, something's wrong with the Zionist dream. And this is going to come back to bite us. This is not going to work. I knew this. Well, you know, life happens. I went home. It's literally 40 years later. I'm waking up in the middle of the night, and there's a voice speaking to me, and the voice is saying, go to Israel, go to Israel, go to Israel. I thought it was telling me to make Aliyah. I thought it was supposed to be, you know, I was supposed to go to Israel and become part of it. It's not what it was about. I went to Israel with an interfaith delegation, and I saw the occupation. And it broke my heart, and I didn't know whether I could be Jewish anymore. I wanted to be in East Jerusalem with the Palestinians, no longer in West Jerusalem with the Jews. I thought, what is this? It's a longer story, but I came away from that experience and came home with two questions in my mind. The first question was, why are we doing this? And the second question was, and then I turned to America, Christian America, why are you helping us do it? Those were the two questions in my mind. I was standing in a church like this. Actually, it was a church 3 times the size, a big Presbyterian church in Washington, and I'm giving a talk about my experiences. I've just come back. Afterwards, the pastor comes up to me and says, I agree with you. And I admire your courage and passion and all of that. But we have to be sensitive to the feelings of Jews in this matter. I just come back. And I said to him, what do you mean? He said, look, I've studied Christian history. I've devoted my life to human rights issues. As a Christian, I feel responsible for the Holocaust. Anti-Semitism caused the Holocaust. And I work with an interfaith group, imams, rabbis, pastors, been working on human rights issues, global human rights issues for 25 years. It's the most important part of my ministry. We don't talk about Israel. Now, does everybody here know what the word chutzpah means? Okay, so my Jewish pedigree is intact. I just met this guy. I looked at him and I said, Pastor, you have to do something else with your Christian